Welcome back to Student Docs. I'm Carole Adrienne, and we're going to introduce you to some students of the documentary genre. We're going to show you some examples of their work and talk about the concept from beginning to completion. So we're hoping you may be inspired to document your own journeys through this interesting period of time. And one wonderful thing is that we all have in our cell phones and computers a miniature television studio. So you really have tremendous ability to produce your own documentaries. Maybe you've thought of making something for broadcast, or maybe you'd like to document your family history. But we're going to share some perspectives and tools and resources along with this inspiration. So my first guests are brand new graduates of Rowan University's television, radio, and film division. Jody, Moser, and Victoria Todorova are the producer and director of Bigorexia. We've seen a lot of news coverage about body dysmorphia disorders, which are often grouped with eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia. And these are characterized by an obsession with some perceived flaw of the face or body that others don't notice. So the most common representation we see of these are images of young girls painfully thin because they're starving themselves. They believe that they're too heavy. But we haven't heard much yet about a subtype of this disorder called muscle dysmorphia, which may be affecting thousands of men. Let's watch a clip from Victoria and Jody's film Bigorexia and meet Mark, a bright, good-looking college student who feels that he's just not big enough.
Let's go, baby.
6'1", 255 pounds, 19 years old, and still growing. Imagine being someone of this stature who is usually the biggest person in the room, except when you look in the mirror, the only thing you want to be is bigger because you feel you're still too small. This is bigorexia. Mark is my little brother, or I guess I'll say younger brother, because he is much bigger than me. I first heard about bigorexia when Mark came up to me and was like, hey, there's something called muscle dysmorphia disorder, which is like the real name for bigorexia. And I looked it up and I was like, this is interesting. Signs to look for include preoccupation with the idea that one's body is not lean or muscular enough. Mark has that. Maintaining an extreme exercise program, usually including long hours of weightlifting. Excessive attention to diet with the focus on healthy foods and protein. Excessive use of food supplements. So he does that. Literally, that's everything on this list. He only talks to me about it. Like my parents, my brother. Everybody's like, nope, never heard of bigorexia. Mark seems normal to me.
At this point, I don't think he's actually suffering from bigorexia. I think he would really be fine if he were to stop lifting or lose some weight. So I have seen him struggle eating. Sometimes it seems like it might not be such a great thing. Yeah, I watched him chew a piece of, I don't even remember what it was, for a good 10 minutes because he wasn't hungry, but he had to eat it.
How many grams of protein and carbs do you think this is?
I mean, theoretically, if you had 3 and I had 7, then it'd be 42 for me and around 20 for you, just because there's 6 grams.
Why do you hold food in your mouth?
It's a process.
A process? What's the process?
Getting it down.
So you force feed yourself?
Yeah. When I was younger, I would eat till like I almost threw up, and then wait till I felt fine, and then eat again.
Are you hungry right now?
Hmm.
So why did you make 8 eggs?
Because if you don't eat big, you're not going to get big.
We didn't have discussions about it. Like it was a concern, like, oh, do you think he has bigorexia? So.
I didn't even know that was a word.
Right.
Yeah, we'll find out more, but I don't believe there's an issue. I believe he's a 19-year-older going to the gym, lifting weights.
Usually, actually lifting takes 2 hours or more on an average day. Thinking about it is a lot worse. I'm usually always thinking about what I'm gonna do for my workout, after my workout, how it was. I think of a whole bunch of different workouts that I can try and I can do for my next day. I think about what I'm doing tomorrow, what I'm doing in 3 days. I mean, I enjoy it. It's not like a bother to me. I know it may be bad overall, but I think about it a lot just because that's all I want to do. I look at myself in the mirror, I would say a lot on a daily basis, just because I want to improve and I don't see myself probably as big as other people may see me. I mean, I see my weight going up on the scale and stuff, and that's all right, and that's good, and it kind of makes me happy, but looking in the mirror is a different story. It doesn't really matter about how much you weigh. It's kind of more on what you look like and how you look at yourself. So even just a couple other days when I was lifting, when I was doing leg day, my arms looked like pencils.
You are not happy. You don't think you're big.
I think I'm big to some point.
Okay.
Like, I get that, like, yeah. I know, like, I have size on me because people tell me.
Exactly.
And I'm reminded. But not to the point where I want it to be.
That's what I was telling you earlier. A million people can tell you look amazing, but if you don't believe it, then it doesn't
Do you
matter.
think you're big?
Not in the way that you think I am.
Okay.
I do believe that my perception of my body is different than others. I don't see the growth that other people see in me. Therefore, I will choose to keep lifting, choose to keep eating, and choose to keep doing what I do.
As we started talking about bigorexia, it made me even more concerned because it's always on his mind. I don't want him to have to live like that, constantly thinking about how to make himself better. I want to help him realize that he's good enough, he's big enough. I get it, we all have goals, but with bigorexia, you don't have a goal. You're just never good enough, and that scares me.
But I don't know what help there would be. I believe that I'm strong enough to do this on my own.
Jody, I'm going to start with you and where you found your story. And it's an interesting thing. Some of the best stories come when we realize they're right in front of our noses, our families, our communities. And Mark is your brother. And I would say he is the third hero of this presentation. It's a very vulnerable thing to let yourself be filmed when you're not performing. He's talking about an issue that is a complex health and emotional issue. Anyway, Mark was a hero on this one. Tell us a little bit about you finding the story and deciding that was going to be your focus.
Yeah, so at first I could not think of something for the class assignment to come up with a documentary idea. And then I remembered that a few weeks prior to the assignment, my brother mentioned the word bigorexia, which I never heard of before. And it's something that he kind of opened up to me about as a sibling. And from there, I realized that this is something that people don't know about and they could suffer with. So that's kind of why I thought of this, was because it's right in front of me. I have the subject who lives with me, and I could really use him to uncover what bigorexia really is.
Well, did you get a release from your brother?
Absolutely. He was 100% for it from the beginning. He was excited, nervous a little, obviously, because cameras in our family is not really normal. So it was an exciting experience. But yeah, he was definitely down for it and letting me be creative with it and show him what we can make out of something.
That's great. I thought he really was so brave to allow it. So I want to talk a little bit about how when we set out to make a documentary, there are so many ways to approach it. You can start by knowing what the story is going to be. You can start by letting the story unfold in front of you. Some documentaries deal really with bias with the story. So I want to talk about, let's check in with Victoria, who was actually the director. Jody was the producer. Um, did you know what the story arc was going to be when you guys started, Victoria?
I don't think so. I think we knew what direction we wanted to take it, but it was such a verite story that we needed to follow what was going on. And Mark was the one that was giving us the story. So we needed to follow his life and how it's going with this body dysmorphia. So I think everything unraveled in front of the camera.
So you didn't know when you started how this was, where it was going to go. I like that about documentary filmmaking. It is kind of like it's a danger zone because you're riding on the edge. You really don't know where it's going to go. But I think that this is one of the few films, having Googled the subject, that deals with muscle dysmorphia. There's not a lot of information out there. It's really a newly identified disorder. Um, well, let's see, what challenges did you face in shooting this?
Vic and I, we had so many challenges. And like to go off of the story, like we tried to figure out what our story would be throughout. Like we had so many scripts and ideas, and we were like, we can go in this direction. And then finally, a confrontation happened in my house one day, and that's where we took our story. We weren't ready for it at all. Our cameras were all shut down. And then my parents and brother and myself kind of got into a heated discussion about bigorexia because they realized that this is a real thing. So Vic and I, we took that and ran with it. Honestly, it was like a crazy climax moment. And that's where our story ended up leading. Like we spent so many hours trying to figure it out. And then that's where it ended up. So it was like lucky, but it was good. But the challenges were, as Vic knows, like shooting every day, it was hard to match up everybody's schedule. And then when COVID-19 happened and we had to quarantine, just not being able to be around our crew every day was such a huge struggle because it's not a one-man job. Everybody needs to pitch in and help. So that was probably really hard.
It's a real team effort. I love the story. It was so quintessentially COVID to me that you guys were leaving hard drives in each other's driveways or in the mailbox. It wasn't, you couldn't even meet up to really exchange the footage. That's pretty amazing. What, Victoria, from your perspective, now you were the director, but you were also camera. What kind of challenges did you run into?
At first, we wanted to make it very cinematic, but with our story, it had to be verite. So that was a big twist. We had to follow the family all the time, which is not a comfortable situation, having cameras all around a family. So we had to make them comfortable as possible, but also witness uncomfortable situations like the confrontation. We had to pull the cameras out without, I mean, we had permission, but not really. So we're disturbing a family and following them around a topic that's not always, it shouldn't always be public, you know? It's a private story and we made it public and we're very, very thankful for that.
So you guys are ready to shoot with the Kardashians now.
I would say so.
Uh,
Over Kardashians.
we're, now you're both heading into professional careers, having just graduated a mere few weeks ago. How did this particular experience making Bigorexia change you personally or professionally? What do you think, Victoria?
Personally and professionally, I think we had our great professor, Professor Nikolai. We're so thankful for her. She taught us everything. But while we're out on the field shooting the doc, it's just our crew. We're on our own. If something happens, we got to fix it. So I think being organized, being ready, and being prepared, and just figuring out things as you go is something it's something good for the future, you know?
It is. How did you respond to that, Jody?
You definitely have to learn how to adapt in a certain situation, like which we did every time. No matter how much we planned, our plan changed completely from the time we got to where we were shooting. So you definitely have to learn how to adapt and just figure it out and do it for yourself because you don't have the professor there. Like, so we taught ourselves almost as much as the professor would have because we were in the field and actually doing it. So that's something that we have learned just from doing it and making it happen.
That's a fantastic skill to be able to roll with it because you really never know in that kind of a situation what's going to happen, who's going to drop out, what you really don't. So I think you had a little baptism by fire as well. Now the COVID uh, hovering over the whole thing, did that change the arc of the story or was that really a technical issue?
I wouldn't say it changed our story too much, aside from the fact that we couldn't capture as much as we wanted to because we couldn't have camera crews everywhere. So it was a lot of shooting with like my iPhone or setting up the camera and leaving it there when family times roll out, so that you obviously don't get the footage that you want and ideal because you can't get close ups and things like that. So that's where that changed, mostly technically. And then towards the end, we had gym shoots planned and then the gym shut down. So luckily we were able to get one in before all the gyms closed. But obviously our story revolves a lot around the gym. So luckily we were able to get most of that stuff in right away and then deal with the family stuff later.
So did you have to get releases from all the members of your own family who were shown on film?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Well, I mean, that's so important. We don't always think about that, but you don't want to have somebody say, "Oh no, I don't want to be shown once you've finished post." So
Exactly.
that was. Um, did you deal with copyright issues at all with music or anything?
Not really. Once we were finding the music, we found a website that you can download it for free as long as you give them credit in your final credits. So a lot of sites are actually like that. So it's super helpful for students like us. Maybe the music isn't the most ideal for what you want to portray, but you can always find something that'll fit and work with your story.
Yeah, you do have to be flexible with that, but it can cost unbelievable amounts of money if you're using copyrighted music. So that was a good solution. Um, Now, what would you do differently next time, knowing what you know now about having completed this?
Something I would do different, which Vic could probably say the same, is to bring the camera everywhere. When you're shooting a documentary, you never know when the action is going to hit or when something would be good. I didn't realize how much lifting and bigorexia was just randomly brought up in my family in normal conversations, and even like my cousins and aunts and uncles, like it's always brought up, and I didn't realize that until I didn't have the camera. I was like, wow, that would have been a perfect scene, a perfect conversation, but I just had to use my iPhone, not the good quality camera. So that's definitely something that I would have switched up to just bring it everywhere and live with it.
They're heavy cameras.
Yeah, it's
Were you
not
able were you able to use any of the iPhone footage?
Yeah, we used some of it for our climax scene, like the most important thing. We were able to use that because that happened on the fly. That was one of the earlier scenes that we shot. But we used some of it, not too much, because we didn't want to take away from all of the beautiful 4K footage we were able to capture.
You did. I would guess, what about the audio? Did you pull any of that from the iPhone?
For that one scene, yes, we were able to use it. It wasn't too bad, but overall, we stuck with our boom mics or our lavaliers because they just sound better. Good audio is so important, and our professor stressed that good audio is more important than good video. So we tried to be really strict with that.
Wow, it is. It's so overwhelmingly important. It sets a mood. It really enhances the footage. Yeah, audio is all. Well, Victoria, would you do anything differently next time as a result of this experience?
I think Jody covered it. If I could stop the world pandemic, I would have, because that took so much time away from us. We were lucky enough to have shot a lot of it before we couldn't go back anymore. But editing was a hassle. I mean, most of it Jody did, and with the hard drives and the mailboxes, it's not what we wanted. I mean, the story happens in editing, and we couldn't be editing together in the editing lab. So,
Oh,
If
that's
I could have
horrible.
stopped the world pandemic, I would have for this film.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, now, so Jody did the editing. How many hours of footage were you working with? Just
Oh.
rough estimate.
Oh my gosh, probably like how much would you say, Vic? Like
200 probably.
yeah, it was
Not a lot, maybe even more.
maybe I don't know what's a lot, but 200 sounds like a lot. So it was a lot. It was so much because we shot at the gym almost every day for weeks, planning different workouts. We shot at my house like every day. So it was a lot. There's little gems inside of my family that I find, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like things that we couldn't use in the documentary, but it's just little things that you like to find, and it's hidden because there's so much footage.
So for now, the finished film is just a little over 16 minutes.
Mhm.
So you winnowed down 200 hours of footage. That's impressive.
There was about 10 cuts, 10 actual cuts that we had to submit in order to get it down to like the final good copy. So it was constant editing up to like 3 in the morning. And I want my team and crew involved because I don't think my opinion is the most important. So I like to send it out to them. So I'd be like, all right, Vic, it's on Google Drive, watch it, give me notes, give me feedback. So that was also a hassle because we couldn't see each other and it just made everything take longer.
Because I think one of the biggest surprises to me when I got into filmmaking was that I loved that it's a team thing, and
Mhm.
which had never really occurred to me. And even though if you're the producer, it's your vision, or you're the DP, you're visualizing it, it's still a team thing. And it's usually a team of people who really care. So getting their opinions and perspectives, I think, is what makes so many films great. I love that part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys had good communication back and forth.
Yeah.
How big was your full crew?
There was only 4 of us.
Oh,
So, yeah, we had another camera operator and then a production assistant pretty much who also did camera.
when you were shooting, did you keep a shot list with did you grade your shots as you went? What was good? Or did your PA do that?
We weren't too strict with it in the gym. We knew what we wanted to capture for certain scenes and certain shots. So we definitely went knowing kind of the shots we wanted to get. But once we were in there, they were very creative with shooting. A lot of the stuff I was in with my brother, so I wasn't shooting too much. But like Vic and our camera operator, director of photography, Frank, he was incredible with just seeing things. So it wasn't, we did the shot list afterwards, which was insane. But during, we kind of just went with the flow to see what we could capture.
Wow. How long did it take from start to finish?
4 months,
4
5?
months? Yeah.
We pitched it in January. Jody pitched it in January, and then pre-production, all that took like a couple weeks, and then we jumped into it. I would say March,
Yeah, that's
February.
like 5 months by the time it was complete.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a lengthy process. I was interested to know from your Professor Nikolai, that you guys actually had to do a proposal for it before you started. So, did you deal with the budget and the shot lists and synopsis and all that?
We didn't do a budget, mostly because I guess our equipment was given to us by the school, so that was like funded. But other than that, we did all the other pre-production, like scripts, shot lists, like things like that. Yeah.
Well, it was a great job. So I'd like to know from both of you. Okay, we're hoping that we're going to inspire other people to pick up their phones or their cameras and make documentaries at home. Um, what piece of advice would you give to somebody venturing out into the genre for the first time?
Um, The advice I would give would be to just go for it. Just take your phone and shoot. There will always be a story and you will always be able to figure it out as you go along. But don't be afraid to just go for it and jump right into it. That's what I would say.
That's great. Victoria, what would you offer?
I agree as well. You have everything at home. If you have a computer and a phone, you can definitely just jump into it, follow the story, follow your heart, and you'll definitely get something out of it. At the end of the day, if you don't get a film out of it, you'll get a learning experience out of it.
Wow, I think you guys did a great job and you've documented something that's important. And you've been one of the first to document it. So I'm looking forward to it finishing the film festivals and I get to see the whole thing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll look forward to hearing about your careers too.